This meeting is being recorded for publication on the website for future broadcast, I guess you call it. First item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could just for a minute ask everyone to remain standing, knowing that Veterans Day is later on this week, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank everyone in the school community who is a veteran, including those on our own committee who are here tonight. If I could ask you to raise your hand and identify the veterans in the room. So thank you all to all my fellow committee members and to all our school community for your service. All right, we have fire department regulations.
Sure, we have two exits right here. Should we need them, go straight through, continue straight ahead. There's an exit there. If that exit is blocked, if you take a right, there's another exit there. If both of these exits are obstructed, we can go right through here. If we take a left and exit through the Allied Health.
Thank you. First item, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have regular meeting minutes from October 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion to approve the minutes as presented and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The vote's unanimous. Next item is approval of warrants. I'm going to do something a little bit different here. The warrant is being circulated. I'm sure everyone has an opportunity to take a peek and sign that. But what I'd also like to do is ask for a motion to approve the warrant as well, so we have that motion read into the record, and as well as the associated vote.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion to approve the warrant is moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Votes unanimous. Carries. Correspondence, this is saying we don't have any. Okay. And student advisory. Arminda, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Everyone who was here last meeting might remember I was planning on launching an online student survey every single month. And I did that for this month, and I had 120 responses. Some positive, some negative. For positive responses, we had a lot of students liking SHOP, in particular in co-op. A lot of students like having an income, using their skills in the world. I thought that was something that was very positive. And a lot of students also liked academics and sports, scheduling classes, clubs, and activities. Some students described clubs and shops as a place to be yourself and pursue your personal interests. As for negative responses, I had a lot of students commenting about the food in Bay Path. I know we have a lot of student athletes and a lot of kids from shops who are more physically taxing, so those students tend to have lower energy levels because they don't have as much food because the portion sizes are pretty small. So that was a very large complaint. 53 students put down lunch and food as a negative aspect. Also, we had some issues with technology and iPads. Some students said that Wi-Fi is pretty slow. I can attest to that. Moving into a more technology-dominated era, most of our work is worked on or submitted online. So I think this is more important than it was before COVID, especially since about 3-4 years ago, we made a pretty big shift onto Teams. A lot of teachers did that as we did more online learning. Also, Microsoft Office appears on every single new tab lately on school devices. I heard a lot of complaints from the students about like when you type in what you want to search on that new tab, and then the Microsoft Office will like load up, and everything that you just typed in will disappear. So it's not very convenient, and that was one thing that I heard a lot about. Transportation was another one. A lot of students are complaining about buses are really late lately. I understand that there's a bus driver shortage, so I'm not sure there's much we can do about that. And also end of day traffic for upperclassmen. Students are being late to work because they're stuck at school for like 15 to 20 minutes sometimes. We leave at like 2:50, so we have to like explain to our managers why we're late and stuff like that. I think it's worth noting because a lot of students who have parking passes are required to have some sort of after-school responsibility. So it's just something to worth noting. And yeah, there was something I did suggest with Mr. Brenner earlier today about letting out students 5 minutes early. I realize that there's some issues with this, but I do think it's worth considering. And that's about it.
Great, thank you for that. So I'm sure there's maybe some questions and comments before we get into that. I'm just curious, what was the, and thank you for doing that, because I know you had mentioned that when you were here last time that you were gonna do it, and it was a pretty prompt turnaround on it. How did you go about, were they formulated questions, or was it kind of open response, open text type responses that you were
I
submitting?
did a mix of both.
Okay.
So I did one question where I listed a whole bunch of topics, like transportation, like academics, shop, etc. And it was multiple select, so they could choose as many as they wanted. I did one negative and one positive question for that. And then following that, I did an open response question where they could type in like paragraphs or sentences about what their specific issue was.
Perfect, great. Any questions for Amanda? Okay, thank you very much for that. Did you have anything else you wanted to go over with us?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, under old business, we have some items that were brought up for discussion last time we met, and the first item under old business is to talk about the dental shop, specifically the x-ray machine location within the shop, because that was something that came up during the advisory council, I believe.
Sure, through the chair. To summarize the dental x-ray issue, we can call it, in the location. If we go back through the history of it, dental was brought on board with the renovation of the building. So it was designed and laid out during that process with the advisory board, and the dental x-rays and all the chairs and the layout was designed at the time of renovations on that. Going back as early, and that was around 2016, I believe. NEAS visited during that same time frame and found no issues concerning the placement or the use of the x-ray machine on that. And then I believe 2017 there were comments about the placement of it and the disruption that occurs during the use of the x-ray machines. So when you walk in, we have a dental instructor here as well. When you walk in the shop, the chair straight ahead is where the x-rays are taken. If that's being used, a perimeter of 6 feet is set up. So when you set up that perimeter of 6 feet, it blocks access from outside coming in to go to the classroom that's located to the left, or to go to the right, you can't get into the lab space beyond that while the machine is being used. So it causes a disruption. I do want to be clear that it is certified. We have received certificates from the Department of Public Health Radiation Control Program for every year we've been in service on that. And part of that is a comprehensive application that they look at scattergrams, they look at the policies and the placements, and it's all within compliance of CMR. I got it somewhere in here. There's a radiation safety protocol agreement that's in place. The application's been filled out and it's been reviewed. 105 CMR 120.420, radiation shielding and safety requirements. and design requirements for an operator's booth for that. So we are in full compliance, again, with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for every year we've been in service. The policies in place do call for sectioning off that. When it's in place, the students aren't allowed to move. So if there is a lesson plan where they have to have access, they have to wait until that's completed before they can have access to those areas. So it's a less than ideal layout. Again, I do want to say it's not a safety concern. The protocols are in place. There isn't any issue of errant radiation being dispersed about during the time of that. So a plan was put forward, again, back in 2018 regarding breaking through the wall at the end of the shop, going to room 137 and connecting that with 136, which is the related theory for dental. That classroom is being utilized. We are at maximum capacity for academic space as well as shop space. And I'll call it use of the energy house, or building B as it's been designated now, for related theory for veterinary sciences. So if we were to do that, we'd have a problem of where we place the current teacher and students that are in 137 on that. So with every classroom space being utilized, that presents a problem. It's not as easy as our students breaking through that wall, because that wall has been identified as a wall that has been encapsulated for asbestos. The building does have asbestos. If you look at a HERA report, we notify everybody that the building does have it. It has been encapsulated, and there isn't any risk, as long as everything remains undisturbed, of asbestos leaking out or becoming airborne, presenting that hazardous situation on that. So we are in a quandary of how do we expand that shop along with multiple other shops that are, you know, at capacity and looking to expand their programs as well as where do we move that current academic class and house those students along with that teacher during the day on that. So again, I will reiterate, there isn't an imminent danger to students with the current placement and use of that X-ray machine on that. However, an ideal layout, it's less than ideal right now, and a better layout would be more conducive to not interrupting the flow of the classes or the lessons during that day. So there are other alternatives we can explore, such as looking into newer X-ray equipment that requires less area, the 6 foot, less than the 6 foot. There's handheld X-ray devices, so that could be obtained through capital skills grants or equipment grants or Perkins grants. To break through that wall, Tony, our building superintendent, is here. I'm just throwing a rough number, you keep me. If it has asbestos, we can double the construction costs on that for remediation and hermetically sealing everywhere when they break into that wall on that. So it's a big capital. It removes the opportunity for our students to do the work because they can't touch anything that could potentially contain asbestos on that. The work would have to be done outside of school hours during the summer time frame so that we're ready to come back in during after completion of that. So the cost would be very high compared to looking at newer technology or a combination of newer technology and moving of the X-ray to the last chair in that spot where they could use that. You'd have access to all the other rooms in there. So that's the current situation we're at. It had been brought forward in 2017, and a formal plan was submitted last March to the director, again, with a layout. And it's a nice layout and a lot of work went into it. It's just at this juncture, there hasn't been a capital plan set aside to address the construction costs, you know, and the feasibility moving forward, because we still haven't worked out where we would locate that academic classroom in the space that we would utilize for that as well.
much radiation comes off a dental x-ray these days? You know, years ago, you went down and you were clothed with a lead weight, but they don't do it anymore.
I couldn't speak to how much. I do know that the scattergrams are done at the time of application and design of it. Maybe,
Happy to answer any questions. I'm Allison Gilman, I'm a dental assistant related teacher. I'm here for an unrelated reason, but I'm happy to answer questions. So you should be wearing the lead apron. They use digital radiography now, which uses about 90% less than the film. So it's a significantly less amount, but it's still radiation. So they do advise wearing the lead aprons, and they do have different technology, as Mr. Brenner described, you know, different ways of taking x-rays, but it's still radiation. So, and as Mr. Bute described it perfectly, it's right at the access point when you walk into the shop. It blocks off all entry to the lab and the shop and the classroom, because it's right when you walk into the shop. So it does pause any activity or back and forth between the shop and the lab and the classroom. So, I don't know. Any other questions? I'm happy to try to answer.
Hi, do we have the digital version, or do we have the?
We have the digital,
Okay.
yes,
And-
most offices do.
And does it make sense to just move the chair to an area that's not in the entranceway? Can we, I say move the chair, I mean move the x-ray equipment or whatever you have to do.
so through the chair, it takes a little bit more than just that, because, again, Tony will keep me honest on that. All that wiring is in the floor, correct?
Right, there's air, there's power, utility, it's all been done underground. So if we were to replace chairs, like you had mentioned, as an alternate solution, and we were to use chair further down, perhaps we could get away with using the same utilities, but there's a separate compressor for air. I can't imagine the trenching that we would have to go through to move it into that other 137 classroom.
So again, moving the current machine would involve, you know, relocating the power utilities that go to that. If we looked at a newer technology, it might be a lot less invasive with the, you know, less wiring, less this. And I don't know what the handheld, Allison, do you have any knowledge on the handheld
The
X-ray machine?
handheld, I've only ever used the fixed units in
Okay.
practice, but we do have, you know, a co-op student that's out there, and they use it at the office she's working at currently. So it is a newer technology, and I have no idea what it costs to obtain, you know, that type of equipment.
So there are grants for new equipment, not necessarily grants for capital improvement of building structures on that. So a quicker or a faster alternative would be looking at newer equipment and placing of that. But again, it would require looking into the utilities that wire that current fixed x-ray machine.
And just one follow-up to that. How often is it an issue where that area is blocked off, where you?
Good question.
Right now, it's daily during A week, because we have seniors, B week, we have seniors working in there, taking x-rays, and then we have the freshman exploratory students. So it's, and the exploratory students don't have any knowledge of, you know, being safe. So we instruct them on that at the beginning, block it all off, and just have to keep a really close eye that they don't walk through that passageway, you know, while the students are working, and we have barriers set up and so on. And then A week, the juniors will be starting radiology in January, and then they do it the rest of the school year. So it'll be, you know, every week at that point, starting mid-year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob?
Can I make, I don't know if it's a motion or a suggestion that the dental instructors and the vocational director look into, you know, purchasing the cost of this new machine, instead of going to that wall, which just sounds like bad news.
So, I just want to make sure it's clear what we're asking them to do, to explore the feasibility of grant opportunities as well as expense to the district to install a new chair within that shop, and to present that back to probably Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee? Is that fair?
Yeah. Is it, do I make a motion, or?
You can?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion on it?
Yeah, through the chair, just another question for Allison. Since I'm not an expert on this, and I was only a part of that advisory meeting for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes while this discussion was going on, can you share with us the overall concern that the advisory members had? Because what Mr. Brenner is saying is that ultimately, this is a safe operation. I get that by all reports and assessments it is. That's minus human error. Well, we're talking about exploratory students. We're talking about a couple of great instructors. However, wrangling in 9th grade exploratory students sometimes is not the easiest task in the world. So obviously there could be an incident with them stepping into the wrong area. It only takes one time. Every place I've been to, it's been in a separate room. The x-rays have. I'm all about Bob's plan if that works out, especially if we can get the financing for it through funding. But I just want to know what the ultimate concern was.
Yep, so you know, as Mr. Brenner said, the equipment, nothing is leaking or there's no imminent danger, but there is always the risk of the student, you know, the students who are not aware of, you know, the students taking the x-rays have full knowledge of it before they jump in and take x-rays. Full knowledge of the risks, I should say. The other students in the shop, the underclassmen, don't have that same knowledge, so they may not understand the gravity of walking into a situation where they're radiated and there's no medical benefit to, you know, you have to have a dentist's prescription to receive a dental x-ray, because radiation can change your cells. So, and that's something that's irreversible. So there is the risk of it, and we have protocols in place. We're in the shop, you know, monitoring it. There is the risk of them because of where it's, well, I mean, it could happen anywhere, but where it's located, it's, I guess, more of a possibility because it's right in the heart of the shop that they could walk through and, you know, while someone's taking an x-ray and be exposed to radiation without realizing what they're doing. So there's the risk of that. And again, we have protocols in place, you know, the equipment is operating the way it should be and it always has passed inspection and so on. But the risk is greater, I believe, because of where it's located. Because that's how they get to the lab, to the classroom, to the shop, because of the location of the x-ray equipment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you're here for another reason.
Yeah, I know, I just.
It's working out very well. So no, it still remains a concern, and I would like to hear from the advisory committee about what they think about the option that Bob is proposing. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I'm not the expert here. And we have to continue to respect the advisory committees, otherwise they're gonna stop showing up. I mean, they were adamant, so maybe they don't know about this new technology. I have to believe they do. Maybe they think it's a great option, maybe they think it isn't. But really, I think we have to continue to respect their opinions. That's why they're here. They lead us in many positive directions. They very rarely steer us wrong. So I'd like to hear from them before I vote in the affirmative.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Bob?
Just two parts of this. I agree with George, if we maybe should look at maybe amending Bob's thing, where it would be looking at future technologies like this handheld, because that would eliminate, you could take it from chair to chair. And looking forward to what students would be in, you know, going out to the real world, maybe this is the new stuff that they'll be dealing with going forward. I don't know, but that would be my thing. And then the other part would be, is there a way to encapsulate that room? Like put walls up? Is that looked at where you can just enclose it?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that.
Can you
So
put up lead
Lead
walls
walls or
around the
something in
chair?
there, around the chair, yeah,
Do some mitigation like that.
and still have a corridor around it.
Correct.
So, through the chair, lead shielding isn't required for the fixed units for dental x-rays at the time. The scattergrams don't require lead shielding on it.
Right.
If it did, and if there was a way to encapsulate that first chair, that's a quick and easy fix. However, it's not due to ADA compliance for flow. If you look at it, there's just no way to put even a 3/4 wall to separate that due to the layout of it. Ideally, it would be relocating the fixed unit or a handheld unit to the end chair in that existing layout on it. And again, the concerns about walking into it, they have a great practice where yellow tape is used, signs are on the doors for this and that. And I'll be clear that through numerous safety visits through NEAS as well as CBRs and DESE, if there's an imminent danger, the first thing we do is remove the danger. So we remove that danger. In this case, it would be ceasing all x-rays, if that was it. I've met with Ms. Genitaccio, and the use of the word imminent was errant. There isn't an imminent danger. So the next step you do is you provide PPE or protocols to restrict access to that inherent danger of walking into that area. That's the barricades, those are the signage. In every shop, there's, unfortunately, in what we do, inherent dangers. We can't eliminate every situation. So we provide the PPE and we provide practices for that. I was assured that there wasn't imminent, there's no leakage, there's no errant, barring somebody turning it and shooting it. But again, we do what we do and we stress safety in every situation, in every shop on that. So the next best and cost-effective and quickest fix to eliminate a potential errant walk-in while an x-ray is going is to relocate that to the end and provide access with everyone. And you could potentially, if it's located to the last chair, maybe partition that off on that. Ideally, bust through the wall, expand it, keep it in a separate, but we're talking hundreds of thousands for construction cost on that. So, and again, that's in the best case that we could find a place to relocate the classroom and expand that. I will throw out that, there is work afoot, and I hesitate to name any alternatives, but a relocation of the shop to an area that is conducive to that, and putting the shell game, move one shop to there and the other shop to there. And again, with that is a lot of cost, again, because of the air, the water, and the electricity that goes to each dental chair and the underground utilities on those. So that's an equitable cost to bust it through a wall on that. So we are looking at it, we are discussing it, we are seeing what funding is there, and looking at alternatives to provide the safest, and that's critical in every shop.
Can I throw something out there? I mean, we live in technology now, incredible technology. Is there a system out there that does training, like we have trainers that train operating cranes, bulldozers, everything on simulators, airplane, right, pilots? Do they have something for x-ray technology? For dental?
Virtual, the virtual
No, I know
learning.
that, yeah. Well, you eliminate that danger, right?
Yeah, those are, I don't know if there's something
Is there
that
something
would
like that?
allow, so again, maybe Allison knows because she's a certified teacher of x-ray technology. I don't know if the regs allow complete virtual or you actually have to handle.
I'm just asking a question.
That's a great question. I'd have to look into that, but I know what we use now is we have the cadaver skulls, and the students take actual x-rays on the cadaver skulls, and then the x-ray shows up the same way that it would on a live person. So they're able to practice taking actual x-rays on actual teeth and then see the results. And then part of the framework says they go out and they do shadowing or co-op and take x-rays on live people, but they get that repeat practice in the shop on the cadaver skulls, which is great, you know, without radiating a live person. But that's a great question and a great idea. I can look into that and see. That would be great. If that exists.
I'm just curious, where is the shop located in this building? Is it near an outside wall, is it on the ground level?
Inside of the circle.
It's in
Inside
the
of-
center.
Yeah. Yes.
On the other side of this wall.
Right.
Okay, so it's in a bad location, like you couldn't extend out a room out to the outside, because you're landlocked in the building.
Correct.
Okay. It's too bad it didn't get laid out right.
All right, any other questions or comments on the motion?
Through the chair, I have one more question for Allison. Again, thank you for coming tonight, for whatever reason you're actually here. So would we be shortchanging our students by going with the handheld? How many, and I don't want a number, but how many offices do you believe will be using handheld as opposed to the current method that we're using now?
Oh, go ahead, do you have another question?
I mean, are we tying our hands by having them only do the handheld method? And then they go out to a co-op, or they go out to start that first day of employment, and there's no handheld? How many different offices do you think even offer that?
The only time I've seen it in practice, I should say, is as a public health dental hygienist, we went to a nursing home and we used it at a nursing home. So we would visit the patients and use it in the patient's rooms, or the client's or patient's rooms. And then that one student who's on co-op now, and they use, it's called the Nomad. So they use it at the office she's working at. That's all I know of. I don't know of any other practices. That's just my personal experience. So most offices I've either worked at or have been to have the fixed units attached to the wall. So I could do a survey or find out, you know, what's out there. But there's only a couple experience that I know of
Okay.
personally. So.
Because I've never come across one unless I'm using some really poor.
Yes, and I don't know, maybe that's the way of the future, I don't know. But I know they last a very long time, so, you know, they do last a very long time, the fixed units.
Okay.
So they usually hang on for a long time.
So just a comment to follow that up. We really have no idea what this would cost, and, you know, if the cost was great, it's something that we certainly could put in a CIP. I would like to at least get a cost analysis. And are we talking about, when we talk about breaking through a wall, are we talking about breaking through the wall right next to that unit, or the in-house suspension room? Because that was part of a conversation that took place during advisory as well.
Get through the chairs, so the in-house suspension room.
That's what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, where
The
there's
far end.
possibly asbestos there?
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, that would be my only concern is, you know, I mean, are we shortchanging them? They're gonna know how to use this handheld model, and then when they go out to work, the doctors are gonna say, why doesn't this student know how to use this technology?
I just want to ask clarification on the motion, because if I understood it correctly, what we're asking Mr. Tripp and Allison to look into is newer technology, whether it be a handheld or a more modern fixed device that has a smaller radius that you need safety around. So I think we're looking at, my understanding of the motion was to explore both of those options, as well as the costs associated with whatever wiring might be needed or utilities to power the unit.
Can I add to that too, that George's idea of maybe inviting advisory chairman to come, and same night that we have the figures and explain this, to include them. I got no problem with that.
So you amending it?
I'll amend it to say that we should invite at least one or two members from the dental advisory committee to come to a meeting, one of our meetings, at the same time that Mr. Tripp and the dental instructors have some figures for us.
Okay, to read out the findings.
Does that sound right, George?
That sounds great.
Okay,
I forget who seconded that motion, if that's obviously a friendly amendment because she made it. Is that
Mr.
acceptable to Mr. Erickson? Okay. You good on that? So is everyone clear on the motion on the floor to explore? Did you have a question, Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is going to the building committee
It'll be going
prior
to
to you.
yeah, Buildings and Facilities Subcommittee is where
Yeah.
the findings will be
And
read
that's
out to,
me.
and ultimately, any final decision would come back to the full committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just so we're all clear on the motion, because I know there's a lot of discussion and one change there. So we're asking Mr. Tripp and the shop instructor to explore the opportunities for more modern equipment, whether it be a fixed or a handheld unit. The cost around that, any grant opportunities, as well as the cost around utilities to support it. And that the readout of that plan would be done, provided to the building subcommittee, inviting members of the advisory committee to attend that as well and be involved. Everyone good? Okay. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Next item under old business is, there was an item brought up about advanced manufacturing, in particular humidity within that shop.
Quick, through the chair, so digging into the history, going back to the renovation, and again, Tony, keep me honest, you were here, I wasn't. There was a conscious decision during the renovation not to put AC in the shops in the gymnasium at that time. So the shops were built, machine was one of those, so AC wasn't in there. First noted a concern in 2016 advisory minutes, high levels of humidity. The concern was, adverse effect on the machinery in those shops. Dehumidifiers were installed back in 2018, seemed to be working. A concern, no data, that they were not sufficient to keep up with the humidity in those shops. Industry recommendations, while hard to find, and the equipment doesn't list specific humidity levels, industry average recommends around a 55% humidity level in there. Tony, when were the monitors put in?
Monitors put in mid-2021.
2021.
For about a year, toward the end of last school.
Two monitors were installed in the shop?
Yes, we're recording it in 2 locations.
So 2 locations, we've been recording from 2021, the humidity levels in the shop, and a handful, not 3 occasions, it exceeded 55 humidity level, 55% relative humidity level on that. So in all the time that we've been getting, timestamps and recordings on maybe 3 occasions that exceeded the level of 55 in the shop on that. There's several printouts for that, graphs as well on the humidity levels in the shop on those. So we have been addressing it, we have been looking at it, we have been monitoring it for humidity levels on it. I will say that, again, the conscious decision was not to put AC in the shops, which would address humidity levels on that. And our building superintendent has been monitoring it and making adjustments to the air handling, which brings in outside air, and we've monitored that throughout the summer as well. And again, on a handful of occasions, it's exceeded the recommended 55% humidity level recommendation on that. We are, as early as last year, working with National Grid. It's a standalone heat pump for advanced manufacturing, which would add a soft cost savings to address humidity and AC on that. National Grid came, talked about the project. We said a great place to try that would be advanced manufacturing. We did send that out for a proposal, and we're waiting for a proposal from McClure Engineering regarding that to see if that's a feasibility we can move forward on in there. But we do continue to monitor it to see if it's an issue right now, it doesn't seem that it's an issue that exceeds the relative humidity of 55%.
Questions, comments? Mr. Erickson?
I know a little bit about the machine shop. Humidity's always, since I started there in 1933, it's always been an issue with steel and moisture. One of the things that is an adding factor to this, we got a water jet cutting machine in there. And when that is operational, water at high pressure comes out of the nozzle and does the cutting. And it spikes the amount of moisture in the air. And that moisture goes out, then settles on the machinery and the materials, causing the rust. And then, of course, it evaporates out. And the readings you're getting are, I don't know when they're taken, whether they're taken during the day or
Every 15 minutes.
every 15 minutes. So you may get a spike here and a spike there, but if we had that machine donated by United Lens, excuse me. In United Lens, when they have that type of machinery, they have it in a separate room so that it can deal with the moisture levels, because they don't have it in the general machine shop. It's separated, I'm not trying to be elitist, but moisture goes everywhere. And that's one of the problems that we have with that piece of equipment. I don't know whether it could be sectioned off and something done in one area. I don't know. Because that to me is an adding factor. It's even gotten to the etching machines by the window, because there's water that comes out of that machine from the moisture in the air. And that's one of the pieces of machinery that may fail because of the moisture. That's my 2 cents.
Through the chair, that's an excellent point. The water table in there, we can look at what we can do to minimize, the dissipation of the water from that machine, which would spike it and account for certain spikes, so.
Any other comments?
Through the chair, it was my understanding that even though some of the readings were low, there was humidity happening in the shop, and there was some other means of testing unofficially. At least that's what I'm told. And any of us who have had any issues with those type of mechanical units know that sometimes you'll get a reading down in the office or in Tony's area or something that may not actually be what's happening. And we've had it happen with, and this is no fault of Tony's whatsoever, but it might give us a certain temperature reading, and then we would call and say, all right, what's going on down here? The temperature's off. Well, it looks good here. So I'm not completely confident in that measuring device. And again, I'm just being respectful of the advisory committee. I'm not an expert in dental. I'm not an expert in humidity. But it's my understanding that several years ago, or a few years ago anyway, we had someone come in and they donated units, and we're supposed to put this whole thing to rest. That's what I was told at the advisory committee. I don't know much about that, but I guess the units didn't get put in, and then they rusted out, and then they became obsolete or unusable. So again, we've been trying to address this for quite a while. All I know is they walked me around to the different machines, showed me the rust on the machines. They never mentioned anything about the water jet when I was there. So I would just ask through the chair, if Mr. Erickson, you're not on that advisory committee, are you?
I go to it.
Okay. If you could just follow up with them at some point, follow up with Mr. Ostergy regarding the theory of the water jet, because that's just one that, maybe I came into the meeting late, but I didn't hear anything about that. And what I did hear is that we didn't have these moisture issues past. So, I don't know, I'm kind of torn here from what the advisory committee's saying and what Mr. Erickson's saying. I'd like to make sure that we're all on the same page, once again, like we did with the last motion, and this doesn't have to be in the form of a motion, but can we come together as, you know, a team and talk to the advisory committee and find out exactly what the deal is here and why it is that they don't trust these readings and why the machines are continuing to rust? Does it have anything to do with the water jet? And I'm not saying I don't believe Mr. Erickson, because I do. I'm sure that the machines closest to that are rusting. But again, I would just like a follow-up, and I'm not instructing Mr. Erickson as to what he should do, but since he is the expert, he was in that shop for, again, I'm not gonna say how many years, but if he can speak to the instructor and maybe speak to the advisory committee on that, even if it's through an email or something.
So, this is just my thoughts, just from a process standpoint. I'm trying to think of the best way to handle that. I don't know that it's appropriate, and this is just me, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misspeaking or a wrong opinion. I get a little hesitant when we start having committee members work directly with teachers. So I think there may be a more official way to go about handling it, and perhaps going down a similar path as what we did on the last motion, and asking members of the advisory committee if they'd like to join the building committee in talking through some of the problems, so that it's more in an efficient forum. With that, it sounds like it might accomplish the same thing.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you 100%.
So I don't know if we need a motion for that, or if that's something that we can pass off. I forget offhand who's our chairman of the building. We're loading up on building and grounds. Mr. Wilby, Jim. So if we can ask Mr. Wilby to coordinate that within the building and grounds committee to maybe invite a member or two of that advisory committee in and have that conversation. And that might lead to us developing what options there might be and those associated costs for further discussion.
I'm fine with that, and as long as Mr. Berner can invite the advisory leadership, and we can have a joint meeting prior to another school committee meeting. I got no problem with that.
Okay. All right, great.
Through the chair, there's a reason why you're the chair. You're just great at this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Someone had to say it.
Thanks, George. All right, next item on the agenda is a conversation about prep periods. Mr. Brown.
Sure. Through the chair, there's been quite a lot of discussion around prep periods. It's a contractual issue. For the BBTA Article 12, teaching Section 2, Paragraph 4, subparagraph B, no shop and/or related instructor will be expected to instruct more than 70 periods over the 2-week cycle of the AB schedule. So with that, there's 5 days a week, there's 8 periods per day, that's 40 periods per week, times 2, that's 80 periods per 2 week. 8 periods per day, 40 periods per week, times 2, 80 periods over a 2-week schedule. To keep to the 70, that's 1 prep period per day, which equates to 10 minus 80, is 70 periods a day they're required to teach. They cannot be required to teach any more than that. Through the last BPTA negotiations, there was a coverage, and there was a buyback of coverages of classes, and that buyback was through a 0.5% increase over the past 2 years, and that's in perpetuity. Everything is exponentially increased. That becomes part of their base pay on that. So shop teachers are required to teach no more than 70 periods. To have that prep period, they can't take it on the site because the kids are there, so they take it in the morning or in the afternoon whenever another shop teacher or related teacher from that shop is available to cover the class while that teacher takes the time to prep the lessons, do the grading, competency tracking, and prepare the lessons for the remainder of the week or the day on that. It's not mandated. If a shop teacher wants to forego their prep and go straight to the job site, they can do that and do their lesson planning whenever they deem necessary.
Through the chair, for 25 years, maybe more, I haven't been around as long as Mr. Erickson, this was not an issue. The outside construction shop teachers were paid for that prep period that they weren't taking. If it's a contractual issue, it's as easy as bringing it to this committee, taking it to a vote, putting in a side letter. Is it okay for the construction guys to be paid that $18 per prep period so that the kids can put the tools back in their hands and be on the job site? My kid is one of those kids. Next year, he's gonna be a junior. I don't want him sitting there doing reflection, doing any kind of reading and writing, because he has a whole week of that. There's the issue. So I don't know why this ever became an issue. They have a week of related theory. Then they have a week of hands-on practical learning, which they deserve. And some of the lower kids deserve that even more because they get nothing but stressed out by the related theory part. Can't they just have the tools in their hands for that $18 per period? How did this become a thing? I get what the contract says. You repeated it to me several times, last time that we talked about this. I get what the contract says. And no, they don't wanna not take their prep when everyone in the building is taking the prep. So it's 68 hours. I know you disagree with that number. But what if it's 50 hours? That's too much for them on their shop week to not have the tools in their hands. For $4,000 per instructor, sometimes not that much because the cabinet instructor stays in a lot of the time. I just don't get, we have a very large budget here. We spend money on things typically, that I don't have an issue with. I think the money is spent quite well. But I also don't understand why the pushback about this $18 per period when we can get the kids off their butts and get the tools into their hands. So that's my question. Why all of a sudden is it a contractual issue? And don't worry, the guys in the shops have nothing to say on this. This is only me as a parent and as a school committee member. They've given up. They've given up. They don't want any fallout from this. So they said, this is the status quo, that's it. That doesn't work for me. Not for $4,000. Not for $4,000 per instructor. Why can't my kid have the tools in his hands? Why does he have to sit down again with the books?
I have a question. Is this a personal issue?
So.
Is this a parent complaining, or is this a school committee member?
Yeah, well, and that's where I was gonna head
Let's
next.
separate this right now.
Yeah, this is a conversation, and I get the issue, I truly do, because I heard, similar messages when you travel around an advisory committee, but I think in my mind anyway, the struggle that we have as a committee is the extent to which we should be involved in the day-to-day activity of the operation of the school. So we can have a conversation and we can understand or talk about why something is being done in the day-to-day operation of the school, but as far as our role in changing that or influencing it, I think is somewhat limited because that's why we have a superintendent, that's why we have an administration. So what I'm trying to get to, because we've talked about this several times, is there a motion being made to direct a certain type of activity to take place on the part of the administration to do something? Because if there's not, then I think we maybe need to move on. Because, at the end of the day, a decision, we can't continue to talk about the same thing and have the same conversation with the same outcome, which is basically nothing. So my question is I put it on the agenda because it was brought up, it's a concern. Is there a motion that someone desires to make to take a different direction or make a request? Because if there isn't, I don't know where we can go with this.
Through the chair, this motion, this idea was brought to us last year.
Yeah.
And we walked around with the advisory, and it was pointed out to us that the kids are sitting there for a period. And, you know, it's a waste of time. So I don't know what the answer is, but we gotta solve it, guys, because this has been going on for a year and a half.
So my biggest request at this point, and I've communicated this, and Kyle can attest to it several times, is, you know, I don't see my role as saying you can or can't do that. That's why we hire the professionals to do it. But at a very minimum, if it stays the way it is, my biggest thing, and I had a son in one of the outside shops too, is that the time that's in the classroom that used to be in the field, that it's valuable on learning time, and that it's monitored to ensure that it's just that, valuable on learning time, and not just time working on a worksheet or doing whatever, that they're getting something out of it. That's my biggest request, and certainly that I think is within our purview to request that the administration ensure that happens through whatever means they have to make sure that that happens. Outside of that, I'm not sure. So I'm open to suggestions or motions to further the conversation, but if we don't have any, then I think we're a little bit hand-tied. John?
Is this something that can be assigned to a committee to look at a little bit and make a suggestion? Maybe one of the committees of your choice that might?
Again, I run in, and I'm open to thought and input here, but I don't know what committee it would fall under, number one. But number two, I think we still run into that problem where we might be outside of our lane in running the day-to-day operation. So that's just my thought, but I'm open to if people feel strongly differently than that.
It appears it's in the contract. Guidelines are in the contract. So does that mean the contract has to be amended? And how do we go about amending the contract? First, to find out the finances are there. You know, $4,000 per instructor, that's fine. Therefore, it would go under the subcommittee of contracts negotiation. And how do we go about amending the contract? Aren't we starting a new cycle for negotiations for a new contract coming up at some point in the near future? Do we wait till that, or do we do it now? Amend the contract, therefore it will be in the next contract. Because I don't know if we can decide, okay, the X shop gets X number of dollars, and that's a committee decision. It needs to be negotiated somehow.
I just want to ask this question for clarification, because I can't quite remember, but in the current contract, it allows for either or, doesn't it?
I have to look for a payment, but it does say no more than 70 periods over a 2-week cycle. It is a contractual issue. I enforce the contract. That's one of my roles and responsibilities. It's fairness and equity to all the instructors, whether vocational or academic teachers on that. So they're guaranteed a prep period to perform the duties that they need to do. Tracking, preparation of periods, lesson plans, grading, assessments, and all of that. To allow them that time to perform their duties. It's a contractual issue, and we're enforcing the contract. I don't know, I can't speak to prior administration and what was enforced and what wasn't. Again, going through the negotiations, we reviewed it. We bought back coverages which were expanded and incorrectly applied on that. And that's where we're at. If it were to Mrs. Zakowski's point, negotiation cycle is coming up, and if there's a wish to amend that, the BPTA would make their suggestions, and it would be part of the negotiations on that going forward.
The only thing I want to say is, I think didn't we all address this like last year? at one point, we had a long conversation about this. I don't remember the total details of it, but it seems like we basically said, it's your call, Kyle. You're running
Through
the
the-
school.
Through the
But-
chair.
But wait a minute, George. So I'm not saying right or wrong, I just know that it was discussed. And I tend to go with what you're saying, Jill, and that is, do we want to go outside of our lane on this? Keep going outside of it and saying, Kyle, you know, we keep questioning Kyle's decisions on this. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but I just know we've answered this around quite a bit.
And I don't mind having, and George, I'll let you go in a second. Again, conversation is good, but our job is to set policy, make decisions, and things of that nature. And if we're just gonna talk about something without an actionable item coming out of it, I'm not quite sure that there's value. But if there's a thought out there to move forward in a direction based on a motion, then I'm sure anyone's open to hearing that. George?
Through the chair, before I make a motion, there was no conversation. You could look up in the minutes from that meeting. I believe that might have been coming under public comment from just a parent, not a parent school committee member. I didn't even know there was a difference, but that was coming from a parent, a concerned parent. And no, I don't think there was much follow-up at all on that question. Just as many times there's not a follow-up on things that I consider fairly important, and this is one of them. I make a motion that this goes to the subcommittee, let them discuss it, let them discuss why this worked for 25 years and why it's a contract violation now.
Which subcommittee?
The negotiations subcommittee.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? So the motion is to refer to negotiation subcommittee to look into the matter. Summarize it pretty good? All right.
Yes, you're the best.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's do a roll call, just because it doesn't look like we have.
Joe, could we set a date on that for the subcommittee to come back? Maybe not December, maybe the January or February meeting, instead of just leaving it open.
Do you want to add a date to your motion?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Joseph Becker,
Aye.
3 yes.
Yeah.
Jim Caldwell,
Yes.
Donald Everson,
Yes.
Jesselyn Gosher.
Yes.
Don Gillette,
No.
David Grenier,
No.
Anne Marie Pantos,
Yes.
John Pulowski,
Yes.
Hal Rick,
No.
Peter Shore,
No.
Tim Shore,
No.
George Scobie,
Yes.
Mike Seabury,
Yes.
Robert Tremblay,
No.
Robert Wilby,
Yes.
Robert Zukowski.
No.
Now we gotta do numbers.
This is,
Yeah. So this is all gonna have to be added up again. We'll take a break.
We'll take a brief recess while we tally over here. If that's okay. Okay, so we'll come back into session here. The results of the weighted vote is yes, 44.275%, no, 31.33%, and remaining are absent, so the motion carries. All right,
Mr. Chair, may I just add a footnote here?
yes.
I do agree with several of the previous speakers that we are operating outside our scope, in my belief, in the school committee. So I would caution school committee members in the future as to where we go as a school committee.
Yeah, and I would suggest too that the discussion that takes place in negotiation subcommittee, keep that in mind. You know, the negotiation subcommittee is negotiations, and it should be contractual topics and items, not necessarily day-to-day operations. But yeah, I would agree with you.
Through the chair. So, for the 10 years I've been involved in school committees, I tried my best to never step on any toes to get involved in day-to-day operations. If this is in fact a contractual issue, we own that contract as a school committee. Not only do we own that contract as a school committee, we own what's best for our children. So no, I don't think we should be stepping on toes, absolutely not. We'd never come in here and tell anyone how to do their job. But this is a contractual issue, and it's having a great effect on, likely on student performance, 68 hours. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's the issue, so, right. So I think what we need to do is make sure that the negotiation, and Don, yeah, you know all this anyway, you know the roles and responsibilities of the superintendent and the administration, you know the issue at hand, and so I'm sure you'll direct the conversation to the right course within negotiation subcommittee. All right.
Well, since there's a question, why don't we just get a ruling for legal counsel and end it?
I don't know that we need to go there, again, open to
I
suggestions.
think you have to go there. He's saying one thing and the rest is saying something else. So why not get a legal ruling?
Would you like to make a motion now?
I make a motion that we check with counsel.
To look at, see, I don't know that.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Please.
And through you to Al, you know, by sending it to committee, we're allowing the committee to do due diligence and determine whether or not it's a contractual issue or not. And at that point, if the subcommittee says, if the subcommittee says, yes, we think it's a contractual issue, then we, thing from council would be justified. If they say, no, we don't feel this is a contractual issue, the issue's dead.
Okay.
So, you know, we're just doing due diligence, I think, by sending it to committee, and let the committee make a determination and a recommendation back to the full committee.
Yeah. I don't want to go on too long, because we've got the action.
I just want to say one thing if I can, Joe. Jim, are you saying, is that the idea of this going to subcommittee, is to look at whether or not this is, what we're doing is legal within our contract?
Well, yeah, because that's the subcommittee's job, is to determine, make a determination, okay.
If what the superintendent is doing is correct?
Well, no, whether or not the issue that is in front of us about the superintendent's handling of the issue, whether or not it is indeed a contractual issue that needs to be negotiated out, or whether or not it's us micromanaging the superintendent. See, if it's a contractual issue and there's a flaw in the contract, then that committee will determine, yes, indeed, there is a flaw in the contract. If there is no flaw in the contract and it is determined by the committee that we're micromanaging, they can call it right there and make a determination back to this full committee.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding of how committees work.
So you're, and I don't want to drag this on, so what we're basically saying is the contract that we have right now, we're going to be basically looking at it to see if it needs to be amended.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, that's what the subcommittee's job is, to make that determination, so.
Not that what the superintendent is doing is incorrect.
Right, it's
Because
the
what he's
issue
doing
at
now
hand,
is
whether or
based on
not,
our
whether or not
existing
that issue
contract.
is contractual or whether it's us micromanaging.
Okay.
Through the chair, my last comment on this.
Yes, it's everyone's last comment.
If this is in fact looking into the contract and whether or not it's accurate, let's just think about the 25 years of past practice that it has been going in the direction that I suggested is the best direction. And not because I'm an expert on this, but I did have 20-something years in the shop area. That is the way it was done. It was a past practice thing. It was never an issue for anyone. So bring that to the discussion.
Okay, next item under old business is the annual house building project policy. And I think this was brought up in the last meeting. Superintendent, did you have anything to? I think where we were headed, at least my thought on this one, is there's been past talk about the building project and the policy related to the project, how we go out and seek interest and award the project. So what I'm suggesting is that this be referred to the policy subcommittee to review how that annual build project, interest is sought out and awarded.
Make a motion?
To refer to the policy subcommittee. Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Sounds good.
George?
Yes, just quickly. I don't think there's any question about the way it has been done over the past however many years.
There is, though. That's been the issue. There has been discussion about the way it's been done.
But are we changing that? That's the only thing I'm bringing to the table. And whatever is happening with this subcommittee, when can we get some feedback? That's what we're looking for, because what we have is someone who's awarded that project. And I mentioned this before, someone was awarded the house project, purchased the land, is paying for that land right now, and putting a well in and ready to go because there was an award. Here you go, we're gonna do this for you. I just wanna know in a timely manner, when can we let this person know, yes, we're gonna do the project, or no, we're not gonna do the project. I think we owe that to the person.
So I guess we're talking two different issues. Yours is very specific to the current people that the school's working with on a project. This is more global, universal, the policy itself, how in the future we plan on approaching, putting this out, the bid, if you will, and accepting it.
No, through the chair, I get that, but this is what I brought up at the last meeting, and this looks like number 4 on my list, so I'm just wondering why we're talking about changing the policy, or their discussions surrounding changing the policy, when my question was, when are we gonna let the person know if they're gonna have their house built or not, as agreed upon when they put in for the house project?
So, again, I want to make sure we stay in our lane. Are we in communication with the people having the house built?
So, through the chair, the current house project is carryover from last year. The house building project that went out last year, I'm trying to reflect here, about the time I started, about a year ago, there was one applicant. That person, well, technically was not awarded the project. They were told that it was postponed until further notice because of the carryover of the current project, which is from last year.
So we are in communication, and the people involved know the timeline and what's happening and what the delays are?
The person that applied for the project that would have been this year, if we had finished last year's project, that person is still awaiting a response of whether or not we're going to do a house project starting next year, or when we finish this current project.
Okay. So I think it's fair for the committee to ask that we just ensure that the communication is open and that the reasons for any potential delays are known. Would everyone agree with that, or is there a difference of thought?
Well, it sounds like George is saying that they were awarded it.
Maybe, through the chair, maybe I'm mistaken, but personally, I wouldn't dig a foundation and put a well in there if I wasn't awarded either in writing or verbally that you are the only person who submitted this year, you are gonna be the next person in line for the house project. So I don't know, maybe I have to do more.
Yeah, and that's why I want to make sure we're all straight, that, we may not have all the facts in this room. So the ask is to make sure that Jim, Kyle, that the people that we're involved with in the build are clear on what the timelines are, what the status is, and what the go-forward plan is. I think that's our responsibility, to ask the administration to make sure that the people who are involved here know what's happening.
I appreciate that through the chair. The last thing I want to do is have someone go through all that trouble if they were in fact awarded the project, and then we change the policy, which I don't deny that the policy needs some changing. And I don't know what that revamping looks like, but I'm on board with that. And I'm happy that we're taking a good long look at it. I just don't want to hand somebody something and then pull it back away if that's what happened. And I'm not saying that is. I'll go back and do my homework and learn a little bit more about it. But thank you all.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to refer the overall policy to policy subcommittee. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, I don't have to count again. All right. Citizen participation, is there anyone here? You're not a citizen, Bob.
I just want to ask a question. In our minutes, did we vote on awarding that house project last year? You know, if we haven't voted to award that project, you know, then it's a moot discussion.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just making sure that we're all on the same page as to where the current and any future projects might stand. So that, number one, this committee knows what it is, but probably more importantly than that, the people involved with the build on the other end know. I think that's pretty important. All right, citizens' participation. I don't think I see it. Okay. Moving on to new business. We don't have any presentations tonight. Item B under new business, approval of 2022 annual reports to the towns.
Sure. Through the chair, the superintendent director recommends the school committee vote to approve the 2022 annual report to the towns as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve the annual reports as submitted. Is there any comments?
I would like to express my satisfaction to more extensive annual report. I thought the annual reports were all-inclusive and really kind of built on past annual reports. So well done.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. Next item, 4C, surplus equipment.
Through the chair, the superintendent director, the school business manager, and the building maintenance supervisor recommend the school committee vote to place 36 all-in-one student desks and chairs and 10 cases of 32 assorted 4-foot lamps on the surplus equipment list to be disposed of according to the school committee surplus equipment policy using the most appropriate method available. And I'll just throw a caveat that they're the one-armed, all-in-one desk chairs, and we will solicit, from our member districts if they want first right of refusal on those desks, as well as the lamps. And the lamps are surplus because of the change in LED lighting.
Is there a motion? All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Item 4D, approval of Skills USA Leadership Conference.
Sure, through the chair, the superintendent director and the vocational director recommend the school committee vote to allow 12 students and 2 advisors to attend the Skills USA Fall Leadership Conference for Workplace Readiness to be held November 20th and 21st, 2022 for a cost of $5,850 to be paid out of account number 53, Skills USA.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 4E, acceptance of cash donations.
Sure, through the chair, the superintendent director, the vocational director, and the business manager recommend the school committee vote to accept 2 cash donations totaling $2,000 with $500 to be placed in account number 4851 miscellaneous income and $1,500 to be placed in account number 2800 electrical revolving.
So moved.
Second.
And we should note that
Just looking who the donations came from.
the companies, We Tigo LLC donated the $500 out of Woodstock, Connecticut for the new teacher orientation, and Mercier Electric of Auburn donated the $1,500 for the electrical shop. Any other discussion? All those in favor to accept the cash donations?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, motion carries. Just a question, I noticed in your superintendent's report, there's the foundation grants, there were 3.
Many grants.
Should we accept those as well?
No.
No?
Education Foundation.
That goes right to the students, not to
Okay.
the school.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
The teachers, sorry.
Got it. Item 4F, athletics, football field scoreboard discussion. So this came from an email, and I think the question here is just to ensure that the scoreboard concern that was voiced in that email has been addressed.
Sure. Through the chair, a parent wrote to the school committee indicating the scoreboard wasn't functioning during a soccer game. Wanted to know why. We looked into it, and the scoreboard is operated by a wireless control board. And the wireless control board used to be kept in a soft-sided case, so not ideal. So being kept in that soft-sided case, the wireless scoreboard operates with, and you put it somewhere safe, Cliff?
To the right.
Huh?
To the right, in the pocket, right.
Oh, in the bucket. There's a small wireless antenna. And when kept attached to the board in the soft case, the wireless antenna broke. So it looks good, but inside it's broken, so when you hook it up, it doesn't operate the scoreboard. You need this. So a Pelican type case, I'm not selling any particular product, was purchased, hard side to store the board, and a separate, as evidenced by my looking for it, spot to protect the wireless antenna on that, so that when they set it up, it will actually control and run the scoreboard on that. And I'm correct in saying we do have spare antenna should something happen to that. So going forward, we should be all set and not have issues with the scoreboard not working. Hopefully that adequately addresses the reason it didn't work that night.
Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Through the chair. Yeah, I think this all falls back to that time that the scoreboard wasn't working. And there was a whole social media post that talked about scoreboard not working for a particular event. Scoreboard was not operational or manned, for lack of a better term, at some other varsity events. So I think the concern is, in general, our other sports teams were playing on fields where there are scoreboards, and it's my understanding that we're getting even more scoreboards. Are the varsity events all getting the privilege of having a scoreboard so that parents, families can look up there and watch the event? Is it a budgetary thing? I mean, do we have students who get paid to run these scoreboards? I just think it's important that we don't just, for the 6 home football games, have the scoreboard going. And I love football like the next person, but I think that we should be respectful of some of the other sports, wherever the scoreboard is available. So if it's a varsity soccer game, then, can we have someone operating that scoreboard so that they get to see their scores up in lights and their families can see their scores up in lights? And even if it's just equal time, if the football team has 5 or 6 home games, can we do that for the soccer team? And I'm not looking to make a motion, I'm just asking, I'm just throwing that out there. I think that was my understanding of the issues that I caught on social media regarding the scoreboard. They just didn't feel like they were getting the same respect as possibly the football team.
So I didn't see the social media. I don't frequent the social media. You know, I would hope that, like the parent that reached out to us through email, with a specific request having to do with that particular game, hopefully we addressed that question.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can speak to what's on social media.
Well, no, and you shouldn't have to,
Yeah.
and nothing, everything doesn't have to come down to a vote. It can just be, just playing nice. It can be talking to the athletic director, seeing what they have for funding, seeing who's available, seeing who's running these scoreboards. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to vote on everything. We can just do the right thing. That's it. That's my only comment.
Okay, okay. We can do the right thing, I just wanna, I mean, if it's brought up here, typically there's something being asked, there's a directive being made, policy being set. So is the ask here just to work towards maximizing the number of games that could have the opportunity of a scoreboard? Is that what you're saying?
Just keeping all things
Okay.
equal. Yep.
You got that? That's all we're asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
so through the chair, it was under our administration that we purchased scoreboards for all the other fields so that they could have equal playing time. So, Mr. Cloutier, we have a scoreboard for baseball, we have a scoreboard for lacrosse, we have a scoreboard for softball, we have a scoreboard for field hockey, so.
And also there's a scoreboard over there for the soccer, the JV teams.
And those are all
the
in,
units that we bought.
they were all purchased, received, and construction from our building property maintenance and electrical is underway. The trenches were dug for the electrical. They will be wireless. We will have Pelican cases for the controllers. And we have the sonotubes for the foundations and the footing, and the steel has been ordered. And not being facetious, but I don't believe we would order those for them to sit idle during the games.
That's excellent, through the chair. So there is a plan in place to man all of those scoreboards, because that's a lot of scoreboards now.
So again, we wouldn't purchase them to remain idle.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? This isn't on the agenda, but I'm gonna put it in on the new business. A member had reached out to see if we, as a committee, have interest in contributing towards the Santa Claus pancake breakfast. So, you know, I don't know that we need a vote. I wanted to bring it up on the new business, that if there's an interest on the part of any member, you can reach out to myself or Sue, and we can arrange, you know, the payment can either be cash or check. Dave?
No, I was just gonna ask, if you're looking at individual, is it tickets?
As a committee, we don't have any money, so it'd have to be individual.
Yeah.
We have no budget.
We don't? No. No, that's fine.
Okay. Bob?
2 years ago, before COVID, we, as a committee, purchased an ad as a sponsor for the Santa's Breakfast. It's disgraceful if we don't. I think it's sad that, I think we charged, or we asked each member to come up $10. So 20 times 10, what's that to buy an ad for the Santa's Breakfast? We should be there.
Yeah, so,
So,
again, it's
I
not a
vote-
committee member, it would be an individual contribution. I don't think we need to do a vote because we're not appropriating school funds. But I wanted to bring it up under new business to make everyone aware that it's happening, and the date is December 3rd. So if there is interest on the part of anyone prior to that date, would be great to get in touch with Sue.
Put your mouth where it counts, right here. Here's
That's right,
$10.
Bob. All right, see the money coming out. Okay, moving on to the next item, under information and proposals, report from the superintendent.
Sure, through the chair, I submitted a written report, I can answer any questions regarding that report.
Hey, you're Richard, I am.
Behave over there, Bob, you're disrupting.
Sorry. It's his fault.
All right. Are there any questions from the superintendent's report that was submitted? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
The past weekend, you were down the Cape, and I was just wondering, value added, what did you come away with that you could share with the rest of the committee that were unfortunate not to be able to go. I believe the chair was there, I believe Bob was there, George, and I don't know, and the superintendent, so.
Mr. Erickson was there.
Yep, Mr. Erickson was there,
I'm sorry, the senior member,
The conference,
yes.
I submitted a report to Sue and to Kyle and to our chairman. We covered a lot of different areas. And I got the paper here, just a minute.
So through the chair, while Mr. Erickson digs that out, it was an excellent conference. There were a lot of great sessions that went on, and it was great company that we had down there. And I would encourage school committee members to attend in the future if you haven't. Several takeaways, and there was a joke that this night would go very long if Joe implemented everything that he took notes on that. But off the top of my head, there's budget reporting, school committee's role with the budget. So, you know, I haven't had the luxury of a conversation with that business manager on those reports, but there's a lot of things, a lot of takeaways, and to implement everything at once, which is, yeah, a lot. But I think slowly improving our practices and reporting on I'll just use that one as an example, is great. There's a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's a lot about student social, emotional learning and the state that they're in. There was an excellent speaker. Some of it was conflicted. One of the guest speakers talked about taking care of the social, emotional needs of our students coming out of a 2-year pandemic and the trauma that they've experienced on that. And it's not best served by standardized testing. And then the commissioner talked about standardized testing. So the letter that the school committee issued was brought up during District 8 vocational, and a motion was made by one of our school committee members to forward a letter from the district to the commissioner and the secretary of education based on that, and that was well received, so that was heard. But I'm sure there's a lot I'm missing without my notes as well.
Yeah, I'll spare going through my pages of notes that I took during the various sessions and just give you a high-level recap. But I had never been, and as a fairly new school committee member, I would highly recommend going if you haven't been to one. I found the breakout sessions, they have kind of keynote addresses that addresses a topic in the bigger forum, but then they have the various breakouts that have different topics that are discussed and guidance that's given, stories shared among school committees, things that happen in other school committees and war stories and things like that. I feel blessed that we're on this committee and we interact the way that we do, and we have the school that we do after you hear some stories. But a lot of good information, anywhere from the school committee's role in the financial aspect and the budget aspect to George and I attended one on the public comment session of a meeting and how that should be run. All sorts of different information. So again, if I think this is annual, so if anyone hasn't been and has the opportunity to break away from your day-to-day and go, I would highly recommend it.
This is the first year where vocational educators and school committee members, that morning session on Thursday with the 2 levels, Division 8 and then the follow-up with the best practices. That was the best time, as all the years that I've gone, that was the most time that's been given to vocational education.
You've been after me for years to get more vocational.
Yes, I have.
I'm one of 10, and each division wants to get in on everything. I think they sort of lean towards me because I looked old. But that's the way it is. The 2 reports I gave to Sue. The delegate session, the president, Stacy Rizzo from Revere, President-elect from Mildred LePage from Holyoke, Vice President Jason Frazier from Clinton Silver Lake, and Secretary Treasurer Denise Hurst from Springfield were all elected to the board. There were 6 resolutions that were discussed and passed. One regarding sanctuary laws for transgender students. Now the write-up on it, if you look at the book here, the write-up is fairly large on each of the resolutions. If you're interested in it and you want to fall asleep, you can read it. But Resolution 2, to increase the maximum balance allowed by special education reserve funds. Now, resolutions are ideas and concepts that we've put forward. It's not a law, it's not a mandate, it's what we feel should be done. Resolution 3, membership of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's the only board that doesn't have an operating member of the organization that deals with on the board. Resolution 4, preserving local governance of Massachusetts schools. That's to get rid of the receiverships because they're not helping. Resolution 5, personal finance and literacy education. Resolution 6, establishment of a regional school assessment reserve fund. Also, it was voted to make life members of Laura Fallon from Northampton, William Gaines from Keefe Tech, Dan Hayes from Shrewsbury, not Shrewsbury, Shrewsbury. It's a William name. The budget was passed at $2,493,051.58. There were reports given by the director, the president, legislative consultant, and the divisions. If anyone would like to have copies of it, I can make them up and give them to you. Now that was on just the delegate session. The other sessions that I attended were listed here. One of the interesting ones was the, I shouldn't say it, the superintendent's evaluation. You know that big form that we have that has all these categories? They informed us that if the categories do not match the agreed upon goals, then you can just blot out that line. So it'll cull down the amount of work we have to evaluate. I would suggest that we get one of the field reps to come in and give an overview of the process, so that if you have questions on it, we can sort of cull it down and make it a little bit more streamlined. Other than that, another interesting one was done by Essex North Shore. They have a combined academy system where the teachers and the students decide on the curriculum and how it's run. And they do it by applied information. For instance, the math is applied to the projects that they do. And it's kind of interesting. I was invited by the superintendent and one of the school committee people to tour the place, and maybe we can get Kyle to go with. It's kind of an interesting concept. Other than that, and then Saturday they had student representatives to the school committee session. They have representatives from the school go and have their own meeting. And they had some very articulate young people. You know, gives me faith in what's going to take care of us in our old age. Other than that, I didn't want to spend the entire night talking about it, but those two are there. If you want copies of it, I can get them to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
How many days is it? During the week, right?
Yeah, it's Wednesday afternoon through Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I would just add, unfortunately, due to work demands, I wasn't able to get there as early as I would like, but I would echo Kyle's statements as well as Joe's statements. Some wonderful things based on equity, equality. I mean, some of those presenters, it became quite emotional. That gives you a better understanding of why some people feel like they're left out sometimes. And they just had a great panel who addressed that. And to see them up there as emotional as they were, it made it real. It kind of hits home. So you got to kind of think about those students who are coming in thinking that, you know, I don't belong here. I'm in the classroom with a bunch of different people who don't look like me, who don't talk like me, who don't act like me. So no, it really drove it home. So I really enjoyed that piece of it. Just great speakers, especially that young lady, senior in high school. You might have thought she was a senior in college.
She was one of the best panelists.
Yeah, she was the best, I think, yeah. Great presentation. And then as Joe mentioned, I think I know which which session he was talking about, where a lot of people have it a lot worse off than we do, because a lot of dirty laundry came out in that session. But I would just want to point out, and not to pat myself on the back or anything, but how many times, Joe, did the lawyer in that session say, well, you all have, it's all recorded, so whatever anyone says, or if they do this, you can always go back and look at the recording. So other than that, I think it's important to address the public speaking policy, but things seem to be pretty quiet here for some reason on the public speaking side of things, so.
And we do have a policy in place very much in line with what was suggested,
Yeah,
so
I
that
think
made me
it's
feel good.
15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So-
All right.
But I would also suggest that, yeah, all of you give it a try. I think you would really enjoy it. As Mike said, it's during the week, so it is difficult.
Yeah.
But even if you can only make it for a couple of days, it's pretty informative.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to subcommittee reports. Audit subcommittee.
Nothing at this time.
Budget subcommittee.
Nothing.
Building and grounds.
Not soon, but not.
Other than we gave you a lot of work tonight. Negotiation subcommittee.
We dealt with several things earlier this evening, and we've got our homework.
Policy subcommittee.
Nothing at this time.
And warrant subcommittee. Warrants obviously available for signature. We already have that motion. Any future business? The next meeting will be here at the Vashon Conference Room, 7 p.m. on Monday, December 5th. Same as always, if you have any items for future agendas, please reach out to me, or Sue, or Kyle. Remarks from the superintendent.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, I just want to start by thanking our student rep for doing such an amazing job on her first survey. She worked closely with our IT director, composed an electronic survey that was succinct yet comprehensive, and she did a wonderful job breaking down the respondents and the categories on it. And we've already started addressing some of the negative concerns, but more importantly, I'm really excited to hear that our students enjoy their vocational as well as their academics, and they feel that this is a place that they can be themselves and celebrate, you know, who they are and what they do on it. So school nutrition, the time, leaving early, all of those things are well underway. I just will add, because I did get reports, school nutrition, portion sizes, it's not unique. My previous district, it was also some of the trades that are more physical in nature, and some of the students, the physical size. The portions are small. They're dictated by the federal government because it is a federal nutrition. We have free lunch, so it gives a minimum and a maximum ounce on those. I will say though, every meal, breakfast and lunch, is free to every one of our students. So the first is free. They are allowed to purchase subsequent. I know that creates a problem for those that are on free and reduced lunch. A breakfast, an additional breakfast is $1.75, and an additional lunch would be $3 on top of that. talking to school nutrition, those students that don't purchase are still allowed, so unofficially, I know it's recorded, unofficially, find a student who didn't get a lunch, ask them to go up, get a lunch, tell them what you want, so they can bring it back to you, and you've doubled your portion size at no cost, because every student is allowed one free lunch or one free breakfast on that. So our school nutrition does have their finger on the pulse of the students and those that have additional needs, and they look to address that. But in some ways, the hands are tied on portion sizes on that. Other remarks are, we just received a letter that went out from DESE in partnership with the American Academy of Pediatrics and Massachusetts Department of Public Health on how to say healthy during the cold, flu, COVID, RSV season. So it went out in English and Spanish. It's on their website. We'll put it with one of Cliff's messages to the families, but basically it's vaccinate your children, vaccinate against flu, vaccinate against COVID. Remember, you can get both vaccines at the same time. Talks about if you have infants and what to do with them, practice hand hygiene, cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue or your elbow, clean high-touch surfaces, all the practices that we maintain from going through COVID. Keep children home from daycare or school if they have a fever, any of the high things. Avoid social gatherings if you're ill, and contact your pediatrician or healthcare provider if you believe your child needs medical attention. In addition to that, DESE is offering COVID tests, at-home rapid tests to any district that wants it. There's 2 kids for every staff and student in the district. And the idea of those is to have those distributed before Thanksgiving break and Christmas break. So everybody who elects to has a test that they can test at home before they return to school. So they can tell if they're positive, then stay home. If they're negative, it's okay to return to school. So we volunteered to receive those tests for every staff and student member, and they'll communicate when we pick those up. It'll be very similar to last year where we did it. We'll go down to Franklin, to Lima facility, pick up those, and then we'll have them here. We'll set up a table and distribute it to all those that want one.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the committee? Amanda, we'll start with you.
Nice job, by the way, survey. I just wanted to say, because it had been asked earlier, and I was going to bring it up by Jim, I did speak with Al Beelan, maybe Kyle is talking to, but this is going back maybe like 3 or so weeks ago. He sounded great. He'd been moved out of the hospital to a rehabilitation center in Connecticut. Thought he'd be there for at least 3 to 4 weeks. But he's recovering. He did say that he wanted to tell everybody at Bay Path that he really misses everybody, loves everybody, and he is anxious to get back. So, anyways, other than that, good to be here.
Just appreciate the comments from everyone regarding past weekend's conference and encouragement to the rest of our colleagues to attend. That's it.
Our student representative did an outstanding job tonight. Of all the years that I've been on this committee, that's probably the best report that I've heard from the student rep. Thank you. And please join me and Chairman Joe with $10 for buying an ad for Breakfast with Santa. Here's my $10.
Looks like a 1.
That looks like a 1.
It's all mirrors, David. It's all mirrors. There's a 5. There's a 5.
Bob, I travel with you. You got more money than God, so.
No, I lost it all. Yeah, thank you, Don.
Wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Same here. Bob, I'll trade you a 20 for a 10.
High stakes going on over
Is it counterfeit?
Joe, you're in charge of this, Joe.
Oh, wonderful.
Armindo, great report, excellent. I look forward to hearing more from you at future meetings. Excellent job. Not much this evening for comments. I would like to ask about the MCAS remediation, what the plan was, and we're gonna see some more statistics on that. I'm glad that you didn't bring them with you this evening, given what time it is now, but maybe, next time around, I just wanna keep that.
I have.
All right, well, again, if you wanna pull those up next time, fantastic. And I have,
I owe you, Bill.
$10 here that I'd like to
John?
donate.
I'll take it, George.
Any comments, Sean?
Well,
Mine is real.
I had a question regarding the reason I'm asking, there's a new private vocational school in Southbridge it's forming. It's doing quite well. The Scriny family donated a commercial building to them for a school to take, to help some young adults that are special needs. It would be like a special education program, perhaps, if we had this. And I'm wondering, it's been on my mind when I hear about our surplus. I know it's a nonprofit, it's not religious, they're not connected with the Center of Hope. And I don't know exactly what our district is responsible for, if it's only high school, if it's for all vocational education. And I'm not asking for a response tonight, because I wouldn't really expect someone, even superintendent, to have it on the top of their head. But if there's a way where we could help them with such things as surplus after the school districts have a go at it, and if we're allowed to, under the legislation or whatever that created us, the people behind it are very committed. Most of them have children that could use this type of education. But I think it'd be great if we could somehow lawfully be like a big brother to them, where we could be. I'm not on their committee, but the people I know that are on it I know them through town, and they're good people. And I think they have a worthy effort on their hands. And thank you for your report, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
2 items. Number one, if you haven't voted yet,
Vote.
please vote tomorrow.
Early and often.
Early enough. And number two, I don't know how many individuals saw this outstanding report in last week's Webster Times. Front headlines: local veteran honored for service, our own El Rish. Very lengthy. You know, you're in the service when I was 6 years old. 6 years old. Thank you very much. It was a terrific article. If you have a chance, go to Stonebridge Press. Just go to archives, look up Webster Times, and you'll see an outstanding report on an outstanding young man. Thank you, Al.
All right, way to go, Al. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
I made a few words. Yeah, Marie? Don? Okay.
Something I didn't mention that during our Division 8 meeting, I had a weak moment. I was elected chair of Division 8 again, and Lynn Ryan is vice chair, and Peggy Ayers is the secretary. We're planning a couple of meetings. This gentleman from Neshoba offered to sponsor a Division 8 meeting, talking about recruiting and preparing school committee people in January. And the other one is Critical Issues Forum. I spoke to Mike Moore and Mike Fitzpatrick from Blackstone, and Brian Cummings from Worcester, dealing with the 3 different tiers of critical issues facing voc ed. So you'll be getting information on that in the future. Other than that, I have no life.
Jessalyn? Good to see you back, by the way, I'm glad you're up and around.
Thanks, yeah. Just happy Thanksgiving to everybody. That's it.
Well,
She looks good.
yes.
Yeah, you guys haven't seen my leg. If I showed you my leg, you'd be horrified.
Well, I've been looking at your legs.
No.
All right, moving on.
For some reason, I saw that. Oh, man. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to all. Great report. Great report tonight. Congratulations to Al on that article. That's great. What I would ask to add to the next agenda is just a report, status report. We've been talking about the sheet metal storage. So I don't know where we are on that. The report now, the next one. Thank you, that's it.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, thank you. And for me, Arinda, I want to echo what everyone said. I thought you did a fantastic job compiling the survey, getting it out so quick, getting the results, and I'm glad to hear that you're working with Mr. Brenner already on some of the items. What might be interesting is that if any of the items are able to get some things and improvements in place, whether it be the IT with the Wi-Fi or at least discussion and understanding about the food portions, it might be interesting to put a future survey out to kind of gauge improvement, see if there's any improvement based on the first one. Just a thought. Any improvement. Improvement, yeah. So, the other thing I want to mention is walking around with Dawn is a little intimidating at that conference, because when you go in, you get a lanyard with your name on it, and that's it. But Dawn's got tags and flags and certifications and chairman ribbons hanging all over him when he's walking around. So, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
To the chair, can I just throw out a shameless plug? We're bringing back the Chowder Fest. So if you didn't see it on the sign down there, November 13th, the Chowder Fest is back. The Thanksgiving bake sale is on for November 22nd. So if you're looking for baked goods, or you're just looking for some good chowder, those are the dates on that. And we had a wonderful fall ball last Friday evening. Over 600 students and their guests attended, and a good time was had by all. Thank you.
All right, and with that,
Adjourn?
no, I would entertain a motion, though, to go into executive session, and whoever makes that motion, if you could please read, under section G of the agenda, if you could read the full language there under G in the motion.
Can I leave? All right. I'm sorry, I have to go. I have my rights meeting.
On the top of this?
In the regular meeting agenda, item G, it just needs to be read as part of the motion to go into executive session.
Good, look.
You got it?
Yeah. School committee vote to move into executive session to conduct collective bargaining session or contract negotiations with union or non-union personnel to reconvene in open session to announce the results.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Joseph Becker.
Yes.
James Caldwell.
Yes.
Don Erickson.
Thank you.
Don Gillette.
Yes.
Dave Grenier.
Yes.
Anne Marie. Yes. John Pawlowski.
Yes.
Al Ray.
Yes.
Peter Shore.
Yes.
Tim Shore.
Yes.
George Scobie.
Yes.
Mike Gary.
Yes.
Robert Tremblay.
Yes.
Robert Wilby.
Robert Wilby.
Robert Wilby.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Robert Zukowski.
Yes.